Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from 6, and today we are checking out We Were Wrong about Minato, and I love this. Like, Minato always been like one of my fave up there, ever since that one shot. Everyone just be like, oh my god, he is beyond what we even thought possible with all the stuff he did against the Biju and the ceiling and all that stuff, and yeah, so let's get Six's take on it, shall we?
Minato is the ultimate shinobi. Recently,
Yes,
Minato got
he
his own special
is.
one-shot
It's so
manga, and I
good.
have yet to talk about it, and it's long
It's so
overdue. The
good.
manga follows Minato when he is a 14 or 15-year-old kid, and we get to learn some extra stuff about the Rasengan, why it was
The
created,
racing
and where
gun.
exactly he
Love
got
it.
the idea from. We also get some pretty nice statements in regard to Minato's power and what he's capable of. Let's not waste any more time though. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you if you could leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel,
Go
as I
check out
greatly
the original
appreciate it.
video.
The
Links in the
manga starts off pretty
description.
insane. You have
It
Team Jiraiya sitting in
does.
front of two Jinchuriki
This is so sick. Like, I was like, whoa, he just speed blitzes everyone out and then just, yeah.
charging up tailed beast bombs. I'll establish a timeline for this in a bit, as there is one key detail in indicating when this manga takes place. The details of this confrontation are complete.
Well, we see young Kakashi, young Guy, and Obito. So this is before all the Obito stuff happened. Well, obviously, because Minato fucking trained them, but you know what I mean?
Completely unknown to us. We don't know if
Duh.
Minato was fighting these
Sometimes I realize what I'm explaining as I say it, and they're like, "That's not actually a valid point." Like, come on.
guys along with his team or whatever, but it's pretty clear that they've at least been in battle with someone. Minato is breathing heavy in the very first panel of the manga, and he has cracks in his headband and scratches all over his face
Yeah, they've been in a scuffle before this.
along with the rest of his team. So I think it's pretty safe to say that they're pretty tired at this point in time.
Just a bit
Han and
sleepy.
Roshi don't seem to have any scratch marks on them, so it does kind of make it seem like this is more of an ambush. In their dialogue of saying that if Minato and the others really want to fight them, they should have brought the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki.
The 9 trillion.
This could imply
Cherokee.
a number of things. Maybe that they were on a mission to get these tailed beasts and they were ambushed by them after fighting a different battle. Maybe they were already fighting Han and Roshi and got beat up. Who really knows? Although I doubt Roshi could beat Jiraiya up since he got beat up by Kisame. Or maybe this version of Jiraiya is just weaker than Kisame, not even Kisame level. Han is actually pretty strong, especially when he's using boil release, but for the sake of not assuming too much, just going with the fact that they were all fatigued when this started, and I'll just leave it there. I think it's also worth noting Minato still has to use hand signs to teleport with his flying Raijin at this point in time. It just shows that he's not as proficient with the jutsu as we see him when he was in the main series.
I never thought about that, but yeah, he's obviously progresses from this as time goes on.
This is a possible retcon with this next part though. We're told in the main series that it took Minato 3 years to develop the Rasengan and another 6 months to perfect it. But in this manga, they make it seem like he did it within like 2 days or
Yeah,
so.
did seem quite quick.
Kushina is excited to train with Minato again for the day, but Minato says he has to go work on a jutsu that's unfinished with Jiraiya and Training Ground 3.
She's like, what?
And then later on this day, he masters the Rasengan. This is after seeing a Tail Beast power for the first time with the Tail Beast Bomb.
Yeah, and then Jiraiya explaining the rotations and all that. I did like how it did like all.
In the first few pages, which is where he got the idea for the jutsu in the first place. Minato's team also tells him they need to go report their mission to Lord Third. I guess it's possible he's talking about another mission they went on, one off screen and not the one from the first page. But it does seem like he's referencing that, since that's the mission we saw them go on at the beginning of the
Like,
manga.
we saw that,
So
so you'd
unless the
assume.
first scene in the manga takes place 3 years before the rest of the manga, this is a retcon. And I do also just want to say, Kishimoto draws the difference between 12 and 15-year-olds very distinctively.
Yes, he does.
The characters from part 1 to Shippuden perfectly illustrate
Yeah,
this
you
idea.
can tell straight away.
Let me explain why that's important, but to do that, I'll have to show you how I got to the conclusion of Minato's age. In the same scene where Minato is talking to Kushina, we see Kakashi, Guy, and Obito talking to each other in the background.
I thought it was cool. I thought that was dead cool. I thought that was boss.
None of them have their ninja headbands on, so it can be concluded that they aren't out of the academy yet.
Oh, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. Alright, yeah.
Although we do know that they are in the academy because Guy and Kakashi know each other and they met at the sign-ups for the academy. So it's probably after they enrolled, so they're around 4 to 5 years old. And considering Minato is 10 years older than Kakashi, that makes him 14 or 15 at the time of this manga.
Love that. Go ahead, lad. Oh, mate, he's
Or at least at the time of this panel.
Yeah.
So if the other mission was 3 years ago, then Minato should be 12 at the beginning of this manga. These two panels are direct on face shots of Minato at the 2 points in time I'm talking about. The one on the left would be allegedly 3 years from before the one on the right. He looks the same age to me. I'll show a few examples of Kishimoto drawing a character going from 12 to 15 years old to illustrate this a little bit more. Here is Kakashi at 12 and then 14. Here is Naruto at 12 and then 15. Here is Sakura at 12 and then 15. And here is Sasuke at 12 and then 15.
You can
All
tell.
of them look much different between these two ages, so I'm not buying that this first scene was from 3 years ago. So I'm calling a retcon, but that's whatever.
That's fine,
Minato learned the Rasengan in a few days as opposed to 3 years. Guess that just makes him more of a prodigy.
Yeah, he's just even sicker than we
then
thought.
we get a callback to part 1 when Jiraiya and Minato are training, and Jiraiya talks about needing your chakra in the direction of the whirl on your hair, just
I
like
did
he does
like
with
that.
Naruto. When
Yeah, I like that as a throwback to Jiraiya training Naruto. I thought that was cool. That's where he gets it from. I was just like, yeah, makes sense.
Naruto is learning the Rasengan. We learn that Minato has 2 whirls, and this is a sign of a genius and gives
My hair's got 2.
Minato an incredible grasp of ninjutsu, which I guess makes sense with the fact that he forms the Rasengan after learning this information, and he just has to need the chakra in both directions
ways,
at the same time. This is effectively the human version of a tailed beast bomb, and he's already got the flying Raijin at this point.
Yeah, like, whoa.
I just wanted to take note of the fact that Kushina is watching Minato at this point in his training doing the Rasengan and whatnot, but that'll become important later. Minato decides to name the jutsu the Ice Pop inspired Nimbus Jiraiya Twin World Sphere, which is an absolutely awful name.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's the worst jutsu name I've ever heard, but
I thought it was funny. It's like, he's an absolute prodigy, and then it's like, I'm going to call it this stupid name. Okay, maybe he's just not very good at naming things.
to be fair, its competition was another jutsu name for Minato, the Scorch Style Nimbus Gale Jet Black Arrow Formation Zero. So yeah, definitely Minato's weakest attribute. We then get from Minato's perspective the reason he created the Rasengan in the first place, and that's to protect Kushina. He says, we're in the middle of a war, and we don't know when we might be sent to the battlefield. That's why I wanted to give you a new jutsu that is specialized for battles against Biju and Jinchuriki, and works in concert with your own Jinchuriki chakra volume. Then he says he doesn't want to lose her, and in an emotionally vulnerable moment, Kurama starts trying to take over Kushina's body, similarly to how he
sneaks
did Naruto.
in at the right time, yeah.
Minato calls it out as tailed beast mode or beatrification, and then gets hit by Kurama's tail off guard and sent flying. I just want to take note.
He takes some damage in this, wow.
The fact that Kurama's chakra, before getting tamed and rid of its hatred, is still acting like a poison. This is shown whenever he hits Sakura during the fight between Orochimaru and the Four Tails.
Yeah.
Just to take into account moving forward that Minato is essentially poisoned going on. Kurama tries to strike Kushina with his tail, but it's suddenly stopped by a ceiling barrier, and Kurama doesn't know who it is, but it's obviously Minato.
Yeah, and his statement, right, it's like, wait, someone that could match Hashirama Senju, that's crazy.
Now is where the controversy comes in. I'm going to give more than one translation for this because it's
what I'm talking about, isn't it?
one of the main points of controversy, but at least in the Viz original release for the one shot.
There we go. Yeah.
Kurama says, the brat, he's not of the Uzumaki clan, and yet he's augmenting the tetragram seal in his own style. A most powerful shinobi ranking alongside first Hokage Hashirama. Unbelievable. Then he asks me,
unfathomable,
Minato why a
incomprehensible
shinobi of his caliber is fussing over Kushina. Now, obviously, this statement is a big deal. I mean, it says Minato ranks along Hashirama in terms of power, but there is obviously some context that needs to be taken into account here. Among the community, there are 4 different translations of this statement, and I'm going to talk about all of them, so calm down before you comment on how I left one out.
Okay, this is interesting. I love this. Six is so good at checking. He gets decent views, man, but he needs so much more. I love the way he looks into it and looks at everything in his discussion, in his opinion, his research. He's so good at it,
These translations come from Viz,
and he's funny at times.
which is the official, OP Scans, which is a pirating website, ChatGPT, an AI that can translate Japanese, and a guy named Zero Two who I talked to personally to try and figure some of this stuff out. He goes to college for Japanese and is a translator for the Character Stats
Sweet.
Wiki if you want a reason as to why I went to him. Before getting into those different translations though, let's add a bit of context in before Kurama made this statement. This is something that's not necessarily shown, but I think it's for the most part very much so implied. I think it's implied that Kurama was watching Minato as well while he was training. After hitting Minato away, Kurama tells Kushina that he told her not to trust anyone and that Minato would eventually come to use her as well. This is after Minato essentially said that he made the Rasengan for Kushina to use whenever she has to fight in the war and to complement her giant chakra due to being a Jinchuriki. Things he did because he doesn't want to lose her.
Well, plus just a Uzumaki as well. Like, you know.
These words could be interpreted in a manipulative, twisted way, like Minato is saying he finds value in Kushina as a weapon for the leaf and he doesn't want to lose that weapon. This is obviously not how Minato meant it, but
No.
Kurama, who hates humans and had only been used by them up to this point,
Takes that
likely
as
thinks
that.
that's
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it'll
yeah.
end up. Now, does Kurama have to see Minato using the Rasengan to come to this conclusion? No, I suppose he could just be saying that him making a jutsu for Kushina at all is just him using her as a weapon. I think that knowing Kurama can see outside of his Jinchuriki and that he's been actively trying to break out of Kushina this entire day, and that the seal started weakening as soon as she left the barrier,
Yeah.
he was probably alert and paying attention.
Oh yeah,
This
he's
I
staying
bring
on
up
board.
to combat the interpretation that
Looking
Kurama
for the
is
right
talking
moment.
about only sealing in terms of how Minato is Hashirama's level. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but one thing that is consistent throughout all 4 translations I mentioned is that they all use the general term of shinobi being on par with Hashirama or Hashirama's generation. I think the fact that Kurama doesn't specify a category in any of these translations, and then later asks why a shinobi of Minato's caliber is fussing over Kushina, that he's probably just talking about overall ability. He made the Rasengan, which is like a human Biju bomb. Kurama saw him use it, and then he placed a ceiling on Kushina that held Kurama back. It's also possible Kurama is claiming you need to be Hashirama level in order for you to do something like what Minato is doing, since, just being real, Hashirama has 0 sealing feats in terms of sealing something away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know the first thought is that he sealed away Kurama, but that's not true either. During the fight between Madara and Hashirama, Hashirama's wife Mito Uzumaki came onto the battlefield and sealed Kurama into herself, becoming the first Nine-Tails Jinchuriki.
And then it went
Kushina
down
tells
from there.
Naruto this during his training to tame Kurama. The first thought would be, how does Kushina know that? But this new manga provides us with more evidence that she probably does,
Does.
because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
see
yeah.
that she talks to Mito frequently. Another thing I want to point out is Kurama's choice of wording just prior to the Hashirama level statement to provide a bit more context. He says this brat isn't even Uzumaki, but he's enhancing the tetragram seal in his own style. A couple things. For one, we never see Hashirama ever enhance the tetragram seal, and the war arc implies he knows no sealing jutsu to actually put something away. Before you get your pitchforks ready about how King Hashirama does no sealing, yes, I am aware of the deity gates and the 4 Crimson Ray barrier. That's why I am specifically talking about sealing someone or something away
Yeah.
inside another person or object,
Yeah, we don't see that.
not just sealing in general. The deity gates particularly have the best feat of holding down the Ten Tails. What most people don't know, however, about that is that the head seal takes away your will to oppose, so the Ten Tails wasn't fighting to get out and instead started making clones and whatnot. He also uses this on Madara later on in the war, while claiming that he needs to wait for sealing shinobi to actually seal him away.
Yeah.
Then the 4 Crimson Ray barrier, it's pretty obvious this doesn't seal things away, it's just a barrier. Anyway, I'm just trying to say Hashirama's not so good at sealing, so I don't like the interpretation that Kurama is comparing Minato's sealing to his.
All right, I mean, I do get that actually. I suppose it's a big statement, and then when you actually look into it, it's like, what sealing stuff did Hashirama actually do? So,
I also want to mention that there is no proof whatsoever that Kurama ever saw Hashirama using a sealing jutsu. The most we know Hashirama used on Kurama was this wood release jutsu through his wood human to put Kurama to sleep. However, who are also some non-Uzumakis from Hashirama's time that could hold Kurama in some way? These two guys, Madara and Hashirama, at least that we know of. Now, just being honest, even as a Minato hype beast, I think it's kind of ridiculous to say that Minato hits as hard as Hashirama. However, Minato being able to accomplish similar things as Hashirama, like holding back the Nine Tails with sealing jutsu, whereas Hashirama could tame it with wood released and Madara could control it with his Sharingan, saying Minato ranks alongside those guys that way sounds a bit more reasonable and consistent with the rest of the series.
okay.
Remember, powerful doesn't have to pertain to punching or
Yeah,
kicking
the actual
strength.
strength. Yeah,
It can also mean that, at least according to Merriam-Webster, having great power, prestige, or influence, with the word power most commonly meaning the ability to make things happen, with Minato being able to hold back the Nine Tails with his sealing jutsu, as well as possessing the Rasengan that Kurama should have seen. So I think Kurama is saying a guy like this with the Rasengan, I know it's not called the Rasengan yet, but yeah, in sealing
Rasengan.
jutsu of this level.
Some of the, I think this is, sorry, but like the subtitles on these videos sometimes are just like out there with some of the stuff it comes up with. I think he has like a one that just picks up the words and does it for him, but some of the stuff it's coming out with is quite. We had the Rasengan before.
Is ranking alongside Hashirama. I wonder if maybe later in the chapter the Rasengan will get a feat that shows how strong it can be. Now, like I said, that's just with the Viz translation, and we have 3 more to go over, but don't worry, they won't be nearly as long, and I'll rapid fire them and go over them all at once. OP Scan says a shinobi of the caliber of the first Hokage Hashirama. There are others like him still around. 02 says there is still such a shinobi since the time of Hashirama of the first generation. And ChatGPT says a shinobi on par with the first Hokage Hashirama, such a person still exists. Like I mentioned earlier, it's very consistent for all these translations to talk about as a shinobi and not specify any specific thing. There is some stuff to talk about here, but my interpretation isn't really going to change from any of these translations. A shinobi of the caliber of the first Hokage Hashirama, the one from OP Scans. This one is virtually the same as the Viz translation, save for the exclusion of the word powerful, but after looking into it, that word isn't in the original kanji anyway, so that was likely just Viz taking liberties when it comes to translating. There is still such a shinobi since the time of Hashirama of the first generation. This is from the conversation I had with an actual person who speaks Japanese. I'll put some of the highlights of that conversation on screen so you can pause and read if you want to. But he says why he thinks this is the best way to translate this scan. This translation differs the most, so I'm going to have to talk a little bit more about it inevitably. But the part that sticks out the most is Kurama saying since the time of Hashirama of the first generation, rather than saying since Hashirama specifically. But again, that's not really going to change my interpretation. The shinobi we know from back then that can control the Nine Tails were Hashirama and Madara. And if you want to throw her in there, Mito Uzumaki as well. Since Kurama mentions non-Uzumaki though, I wouldn't, but yeah. My interpretation would just be saying Minato is around that level through Rasengan and sealing jutsu combo. When I talked to 02 more about the Hashirama of the first generation part, he did tell me that within the context of Naruto, it is possible to interpret that as saying Hokage. There is still such a shinobi since the first Hokage Hashirama. Again, basically the same thing. And then ChatGPT, which here it gives its breakdown on why it translated it the way it did, and I'll leave that on screen for everyone to read. After this, Minato tells Kurama he likes strong people stronger than him. I think including context from Kurama, Minato is talking about mental strength and
like
physical
what
power
she
or
is
anything.
enduring.
I mean,
My
Kurama
God.
is literally saying, why is someone as strong as you or of your level worried about someone like this? And Kurama, being Kushina's Jinchuriki, should know how strong she is.
Should have a
Kushina gets a
gauge
mental
anyway.
imp and
Like,
starts
yeah.
wrapping Kurama up in chains, but that only makes him more mad, and he starts ripping the chains, causing Kushina to go into V2. Then he cleaves straight through Minato's chest.
Mate, like, that is a lot to take. Bloody hell. I was just like, he is taking some damage, man.
But just to mention, not only has Minato been training all day, he's currently enhancing a seal, which
So
struck at the
also just
chest
blatantly
off
has
guard
bad
earlier,
durability, by
and
the way.
can't really move to dodge, or he'd have to release his sealing hand. On top of that, Kurama also hits him with his claws, and obviously piercing damage is stronger than blunt force. And V2 specifically is stated to be really condensed chakra, so it's not like this is a basic attack, as well as the fact that, like I mentioned, Minato is essentially getting poisoned here. We then see Minato enter the seal where Kurama is stored, which is pretty consistent for him. He did it with Naruto, and you can see he's just a chakra ghost here with the little
He's a
flames
chocolate
of
ghost.
chakra coming off his skin.
Choco.
Then we're getting back into controversial territory as Kushina tightens her chains on Kurama, and Minato clashes with the tailed beast bomb.
Mate.
For one, let's get it out of the way that the tailed beast bomb is incomplete, and Kushina's chains are on Kurama. That much is true, and it's enough to say that this isn't completely his full power. However, this bomb is still bigger than the one used on Pain, and bigger than the one that Orochimaru said could end his life if it hit him,
true.
despite his regeneration. And it also knocked over 3 deity gates. Pain also didn't even get hit by the full-tailed beast bomb. As you can see here, Pain lands and the Six Tails gets up on him. When it starts forming the bomb, Pain interrupts it and shoots it off way over there to behind the Hokage heads. It blows up, and then the explosion gets bigger and eventually gets over to Pain again. At the very least, I'm saying Minato should be able to one-shot all of those guys, the Sannin level people in Pain with his Rasengan, because he got stronger after this, as he had 10 more years to train and fight. And if you don't believe the retcon I mentioned earlier, then he still hasn't perfected this Rasengan. There's also some controversy surrounding if Kurama is at full power inside the seal. I think that this is kind of stupid, especially since that it revolves around Naruto's performance against the Nine Tails when he's in Sage mode. But not only did Naruto not do good against the Nine Tails before Kushina's interference, this is literally where the Nine Tails is sealed away at. All of its power is put to this spot. These people are entering the seal, not entering somewhere where Kurama also exists. There was also some talk about the Eight Tails catching the Nine Tails Biju Bomb within this realm, but I just want to say that this also doesn't have to be a full power Biju Bomb that he captured, and nothing implies that it is. It isn't large or anything like that. It's not even as large as the one that skinny Kurama makes later on. Minato also had to win this clash with the Nine Tails, because if he didn't, Kurama would have just kept coming and eventually got out, since he already had Nine Tails of version 2 out of Kushina and had taken over her body. So that's it for the controversy. At the absolute lowest, I see the feat going, and if you don't want to take Pain's example because the tailed beast bomb, even though it wasn't complete and from a weaker Nine Tails, actually exploded, the Orochimaru example should still suffice, and Minato should be able to one-shot Sannin. I do just want to mention though that after seeing Minato do this, it kind of makes sense why Naruto kicked away 5-tailed beast bombs and Kakashi thought he was Minato. After this though, the manga pretty much just ends.
Yeah, cool. Good to see Six's take on it. Really good look, especially at looking at like the years and how old and everything and blah blah. That's cool. That's really cool. Man, I loved it. I want a physical copy of that. I hope it's not just plumped in with a Boruto chapter, do you know what I mean? Probably is going to be. Oh, I got rid of my Boruto mangas and I just read it as it comes out now because it's just like, it just doesn't feel right having it next to the Naruto stuff. But it got good, so maybe I might have to rebuy it. But that's Six's take on the Minato manga. Make sure you check out my Etsy shop. Links in the description for t-shirts and hoodies that I've designed. And thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link in the description of the Patreon page. $1 a month for support. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, and leave comments down below. Let me know that I should watch the custom future videos. I'll see you guys all next time.